So amphibian nerve muscle physiology has been already done by I think Oren sir, right? Or Subhasis sir কে নিয়েছে amphibian nerve muscle? So today we will be doing amphibian cardiac experiments. Not we will be doing, we will be discussing some things about it. So amphibian cardiac graphs or amphibian cardiac experiments, whatever you may call it. So here we will be discussing certain points. What are the points you should notice and what are the properties of cardiac muscles we are going to discuss. So there are a few points, 7 to 8 points, okay, which we will be noticing. So what is the purpose of this amphibian experiment? Because when effect of drugs and all, actually in previous days it was the effect was seen in various pigs or sheep or any animal, guinea pigs or even rats or these amphibians. So আমরা বিভিন্ন ড্রাগ বা মেডিসিন এদেরকে আমরা দিতাম and we used to notice ki what are the effects they are having in those animals hearts or even other organs, okay, and that's how that was actually a part of clinical trial as well ki hoy. And we are interested in creating and understanding the link between different subjects, and also different subjects means not your syllabus subjects but different subjects means subjects of different species, যে আমাদের হার্টে কি রকম এফেক্ট হচ্ছে, অন্যদের বডিতে অন্যান্য অ্যানিমাল স্পিসিসে কি রকম এফেক্ট হচ্ছে, সো সেগুলো ইন্টারলিঙ্ক করার জন্য কি হোয়াট এভার দ্য প্রপার্টিজ অফ আওয়ার কার্ডিয়াক মাসেলস অর মাসেলস আর the animals like sheep, pig, these amphibians or other mammals, does their heart or skeletal muscles or cardiac muscles, does this also same property? So we are very inquisitive about this, and that's how this amphibian experiment and all those other experiments came along. Only the amphibian part is in your syllabus, okay, not very important in case of your clinical perspective, but since it is in your syllabus, you will have to answer and prepare questions, and also relevant questions can be asked by the externals. So what are the points, what are the characteristics of the cardiac muscles you are going to notice? So these points being contractility, okay, our cardiac muscles are also contractile, they are also, so contractility, then conductivity, conduction of electrical impulses or in general beating impulses or action potential, whatever you may call it, okay, causing the beating of their heart due to conductivity and contractility. Then rhythmicity, what is rhythm? So whenever we study a human heart, we notice these things, rhythm, rate, okay, so all of these things we notice. Similarly, the frog heart is also rhythmic. So rhythmicity we also notice how the rhythm of the cardiac muscle or cardiac rhythm of the frog. So after rhythmicity we will be noticing automaticity. Automaticity means does the is the conduction or is the impulse generation automatic, or every time we will have to provide an outside impulse? No, it's actually pretty automatic, because cardiac muscles and cardiac sensations are automatic sensations, autonomic nervous system এর আন্ডারে এটা থাকে, and a autonomic sensation, because if the heart doesn't beat automatically, the animal won't be alive, okay. By to create every sensation or every impulse, if we have to provide stimuli from outside, that's not physiologically possible, so the animal would be dead, okay. So automaticity of your heart, and also a few extra characteristics, like we will all be discussing all these things, okay. Just first write these points: extra systole and compensatory gap. compensatory gap, right? Or pause, extrasystole and compensatory pause. Then all or none law, okay. Then staircase effect, staircase CD, and finally summation of subminimal stimuli, subminimal stimuli. Okay. So what are all those things? These 8 properties. What are all these 8 properties? Okay. And how we will be noticing, or we notice this in case of amphibian experiments? We will be discussing all these things one by one. Okay. So amphibian cardiac experiments means noticing or experimenting about all these characteristics in your, or not yours, in a frog's cardiac muscle, and we will be doing this. So ki kore amra kori, we take a frog, we dissect it, okay, expose its chest area, and ব্যাংটাকে আমরা উল্টো করে রাখি, okay, we turn the frog around, and on its belly side is kept above, okay, and the heart is actually measured by the help of a few things. It is called kymograph. Okay, জিজ্ঞেস করতে পারে যে কি কি তোমরা নাও, what are the instruments used? So লেখো kymograph. Okay, kymograph is that graph, that round graph with that pin and all this, then that's the kymograph. Okay, then the myograph stand, there is a stand, okay, myograph stand, myograph board, then frog, then electrical circuit, then we will be leading ringal lactate solution, okay, then we will be needing also pins, threads, write these things, pins, threads, and also aneurysm needle or Symes cannula, লেখো এগুলো সব। So we need some basic things. Depending upon extra tests, we might be needing some extra components, like when we will be checking the drugs and ion effects, we will be needing some ion solution and some drugs like acetylcholine, adrenaline, and those ions like KCl. KCl মানে কি? Potassium chloride, sodium chloride, calcium chloride. We will be needing those things, and also a few things according to the experiments we will be doing, different experiments, but primarily we need a kymograph, okay, so that the graph can be drawn. Myograph stand, we stand এই হচ্ছে গিয়ে that pin, and the graph is present over the stand only. Then this myograph board, over this myograph board actually এই এরকম একটা রাউন্ড এরকম মেশিন থাকে, and there is a board, over this board only the graph is formed, okay, এরকম over this board only the graph is formed. And also we need a frog. If there is no frog, there might be no experiment. Then electrical circuit, but why? Because we will be providing stimulus in the frog heart via this electrical circuit, so there must be electrical circuit and electrodes also. There is a ring electrode solution, the heart is dipped in the ring electrode solution for good electrical conductivity. Then pins for putting the frog, okay, crucifying the frog. Then there will be threads for threads for binding the frog and also binding some special areas to notice a few of these things. Okay, কি কি আমরা bind করব আমি পরে বলছি। Then aneurysm needle or Symes cannula depending upon the experiments. A cannula is there, a needle is there. So all of these things are basic things. We will be adding more things or we will be removing more things according to the test. But these are the basic things you will be needing. Okay, জিজ্ঞেস করে না নরমালি, বাট লিখতে দিতে পারে প্র্যাকটিক্যালে, তোমাদের যদি বাই চান্স দেয় লিখতে হবে, জিজ্ঞেস করতে পারে। ওকে, সো দিস আর দ্য বেসিক, উইল বি নিডিং অল দোজ থিংস, উইল বি ডুইং সাম টেস্ট ওভার দ্য উইথ দ্য ফ্রগ। অ্যান্ড কি করে করি, এই যে বেসিক স্ট্রাকচার ইজ there is a board and stand is like this. Okay, there is a board also like this, the frog is put here, এরকম ভাবে ফ্রগটা থাকে। Okay, the frog is put here with his chest or belly put upwards. Okay, তো এখানে হচ্ছে কি আমার একটা উইন্ডো থাকবে, in this window there is the heart and the heart is actually not measured like this, the base of the heart is above. Okay, so ideally human heart যদি এরকম হয়, okay, a frog heart is like this, there is 2 chambers of ventricle and 2 chambers of atria in human heart. Okay, along with all those veins and all those arteries and all coming and going out. But in case of frogs there are 2 atrium but only 1 ventricle, ঠিক আছে, and there is a sinus venosus coming like this, sinus venosus. So all the stimuli and all are produced from this sinus venosus. Okay, and there is only 1 ventricle and 2 atrium. So this is the basic frog heart structure, very common structure and very simple structure, not like our human heart. So now this heart, okay, is actually placed here in opposite direction. This base of the heart is above, so the heart will be like this, this area the heart will be like this. এরকম উল্টো ভাবে দেওয়া থাকে, the sinus venosus is on the upper side now. Okay, সেরকম উল্টো ভাবে থাকে and it is suspended via, ওই যে পিন, এখানে পিন ফিন লেখা আছে, ওইগুলো দিয়ে পিন দিয়ে থ্রেড দিয়ে আমরা এরকম ভাবে ঝুলিয়ে দিই, এরকম ভাবে ঝুলিয়ে দেওয়া হয় and ঝুলিয়ে দেওয়া হয়, বাট okay, it is suspended but it's not detached from the frog body. Okay, it's slightly suspended and the other part of the pin is on the board. Okay, so that whenever the heart contracts, কিভাবে হয় আমি বলছি। Now suppose this is the frog, এই হার্টটা এখানে আছে। Now if the heart contracts, okay, কি হবে, এখানে যদি কন্ট্রাক্ট হয় ওই পিনটাকেও নিচের দিকে টানবে, তো ধরো এখানে হার্টটা আছে, ও কন্ট্রাক্ট হচ্ছে, সো ইট টেকস দ্য পিন বিলো এন্ড এটা দিলে আমার কোথায় হবে, এই পিনটা উপরে উঠে যাবে। ভাবো আমি তোমাকে কি করে বোঝাই এখন, এইখানে ধরো আমার হার্টটা এখানে কন্ট্রাক্ট হচ্ছে, ঠিক আছে, এরকম কন্ট্রাক্ট হচ্ছে, তো আমার যেখানে পিনটা আছে, এখানে দড়িটা আছে, হার্টটা কন্ট্রাক্ট হলে দড়িটা নিচের দিকে আসবে। নাও the pin is like this and this is like this, if this comes below, okay, গ্রাফটা কি রকম হবে, for every contraction, okay, the heart will pull this pin little bit below, if it comes little bit below, এই যে এখানে সার্কিটটা আছে, কি হবে, এটা কি হবে, এটা যদি নিচে আসে এটা উপরে উঠবে, so the graph goes like this. Okay, now again contracting matlab systole, now when there is diastole relaxing, when it is relaxing that comes down like this, then again that is contracting, okay, this side of pin comes down and this goes up, so again it will go up, then abar diastole hocche, then it's again releasing it and এরকম করে আবার এরকম হচ্ছে, then abar it's contracting, whenever it's contracting this pin is going downwards and it is going upwards, so again it will go upwards. Okay, তো এইভাবে হচ্ছে কি আমার হতে হতে আসছে। now again it will be dilating, it comes down এরকম করে and this board actually revolves around, এটা তোমরা অলরেডি দেখেছো আগে এক্সপেরিমেন্টে 11 12 এ হয়তো তোমাদের স্কুলে ছিল, and the board continuously revolves, so there is no overlapping of these writings, boardটা কন্টিনিউয়াসলি ঘুরে যাচ্ছে ওর মতো, আমার মতো এরকম দাগ পড়ে যাচ্ছে। Okay, now In this case, the heart is beating. So we do these things by two parts. First is in case of beating heart and also in case of quiescent heart. Quiescent heart means the heart is not beating. Okay, it's absolutely static and still. Okay, in still heart we will be doing some things, and in beating heart we will be doing some things. So the basic procedure is this. Okay, so all of this, এটা হচ্ছে frog board, দেখছো তো? So these things are basic. You will need it anyway, and according to it, if we want to put some drugs and all, এখানে আমরা ইনস্ট্রুমেন্টে or props আমরা সেইগুলো অ্যাড করে দেবো, ঠিক আছে? Now the basically এইভাবে আমার পুরো জিনিসটা হচ্ছে, and via this এই যেখানে, now this is the point to note, since the heart is upside down, এখানে এক্স্যাক্টলি এরকম হয় না, এখানে এরকম আসে, ঠিক আছে? The picture is like this. Upside down আমার এই গ্রাফটা ফর্ম হয় এরকম করে, but the actual cardiac graph of a frog looks like this. Okay, কিরকম হয়? এরকম। এরকম হয়, ঠিক আছে? Now when we will be looking at the paper, it looks upside down like this. Okay, because the heart is upside down. Now আমরা যখন ভ্যালুটাকে দেখতে চাবো, আমরা এটাকে উল্টে দিয়ে দেখবো, তখন এটা এরকম আসবে। নাও তোমাদের জিজ্ঞেস করতে পারে এখানে কি কি আছে, হোয়াট আর দ্য পার্টস অফ ইট? দিস ইজ ইয়োর এক্স part. This part is for sinus, this part is for atrial contraction, this part is for atrial contraction, ventricular. So V and A, তোমাদের গ্রাফে এরকম x a v দিয়ে জিজ্ঞেস করতে পারে। So this part is for ventricular contraction, this part is for atrial contraction, and this is X for sinus rhythm, ঠিক আছে? নরমালি সাইনাস রিদমটা আমাদের আলাদা করে এখানে একটা ছোট এরকম মানে দেখা যায় না, বাট টিপিক্যালি the place is for, this place is for sinus rhythm. So this place is for sinus rhythm, this place is for atrial contraction, this place is for ventricular contraction. Never forget, always asking questions about this. X, A and V. X sinus দিয়ে ডিনোট করে, A বোঝা যাচ্ছে কাকে? অ্যাট্রিয়া, V কাকে ডিনোট করবে? ভেন্ট্রিকলকে। So this is the normal cardiac cycle. So now we will be seeing these things, how this graph actually maintains conductivity. So first point, contractility. Contractility we already noticed. If the heart will not contract, a graphটাই form হবে না. So we are seeing the contractility. We can see the heart beating, okay, contracting and all. So contractility part is proved because of this formation of this graph. Because if the heart wasn't contractile, no graph would have been formed. Second, conductivity and rhythmicity. Now, rhythmicity. But দেখো, this is in a particular rhythm. Okay, it's not like that যে প্রথমে আমার দুটো আছে, then there is a gap, then there is three. So it's not of irregular rhythm. It maintains a particular rhythm. দেখো মোটামুটি যে distance of this are same. Okay, and also they are coming at same interval. So they are actually having a regular rhythm, not irregular. Okay, so regular rhythm. So frog heart is rhythmic, it maintains the rhythmicity, it maintains a regular rhythm. Okay, this is not irregular, this is regular. Okay, forming a regular interval, and also the peak, matlab the force of contraction, the intensity or the force of contraction is also, এক সেকেন্ড কাগজটা কি উড়ে গেছে এখানে আছে, and the intensity or the force of contraction is also দেখো similar. So that means it's rhythm. Now automaticity. Do you see us putting other objectives in beside, in behind, or in between these areas? No, we are not putting any medication, any outside stimuli. Okay, it's automatic. একটা শেষ হচ্ছে আবার আরেকটা শুরু হচ্ছে, লাইক হিউম্যান ইসিজি। হিউম্যান ইসিজিতে আমরা যেখানে আঁকা আছে দেখো, একটা এরকম শেষ হচ্ছে, আবার আরেকটা শুরু হয়ে যাচ্ছে নিজের মতো। ওটা হচ্ছে টি, এটার পর আবার আমার নতুন করে পি শুরু হয়ে যাবে। জাস্ট লাইক দ্যাট, ইটস অটোমেটিক। ওকে, কার্ডিয়াক মাসেলস অফ হিউম্যানস আর অটোমেটিক, দাস ফ্রগেরও অলসো অটোমেটিক। দেখো এখানে অটোমেটিক শুরু হয়ে যাচ্ছে। পয়েন্ট টু নোটিস, সিন্স দে হ্যাভ ভেরি লেস, only one ventricle and two atria and a very simplified cardiac model. ওদের গ্রাফটা দেখো খুব সিম্পল, আমাদের গ্রাফটা দেখো কতগুলো কম্পোনেন্ট আছে। their graph has only two components, Okay, atrial component, ventricular component, but there is a sinus rhythm component as well. But as আমাদের এখানে দেখো, আমাদের এখানে সাইনাস রিদম কোন জায়গাটাকে ডিনোট করছিল, এইটা, এটাকে সাইনাস রিদম বলে তো। P, if P wave always precedes the QRS, it is called that the heart is in sinus rhythm. আগের দিন আমি বলেছিলাম। So এখানে সাইনাস রিদমটা P wave এর প্রেজেন্স, the presence of P waves denotes the sinus rhythm. Just in this case, this presence of this area should be present. Okay, this is, the heart should not be like this. Normally the area should be present, so area for sinus rhythm is present, then atrial contraction, then ventricular contraction. But it is very much simplified than all those segments and all those, okay, gaps and all was there in human ECG, but in frog ECG only this, কেবল মাত্র এটা, very simplified. Look, you can compare, ওটা আমি ওই জন্যই মুছিনি, you can compare the human along with the frog, very simplified, but the basic mechanisms are almost same, almost. Of course, for amphibian and mammal there will be little bit difference, like the chamber itself is different, area and the process of, you know, regulating the rhythms are also a little bit different, but the main philosophies are same. ঠিক আছে, আর এই মেশিনটা বোঝা গেছে কিভাবে আমরা অপারেট করি। আমাদের এখানে হাতে নাতে মেশিন ব্যাংক কেটে তো it's not possible for me or for other teachers also no to do this, but the basic funda is like it. Okay, contraction হচ্ছে আমার এখানে ছবি আঁকছে ওরা, and dilate হচ্ছে সেম যে আমার গ্রাফটা হচ্ছে, this rotates continuously not to affect hindrance or overlapping of writing, not writing or of drawing. ঠিক আছে, এটা কন্টিনিউ ঘুরতে থাকে, এতে একটার পর একটা কাগজটা এরকম ঘুরতে আছে, ও এরকম ঘুরতে আছে, আমি আমার মতো গ্রাফ এঁকে যাচ্ছি, ওর মতো এরকম ঘুরছে, বোঝা গেল, যেমনি হয় তোমরা দেখেছো, অনেক মেশিন দেখেছো এরকম হয়। অটোমেটিক, দেখো কোনো অটোমেটিক, সো কোনো গ্যাপ নেই মাঝখানে, দিস ইজ অটোমেটিক, নো আউটসাইড স্টিমুলি নিডেড, one is ending another is starting, so automaticity. So in from this graph and also cardiac conductivity, if there is no conductivity of electrical impulse, okay, there should be no contraction or ventricular contraction. So for now conductivity is also a little bit proven, not completely but a little bit proven, that the conductivity is also uniform and okay. So contractility, rhythmicity and automaticity, these three things are okay definitely confirmed via this normal graph. This is half confirmed, we will confirm it, the conductivity and all these things just now in our next experiment, যেখানে আমরা আরো ডিটেইলে ডিসকাস করব। ওকে, সো এগুলো তোমরা লেখো, আমি 2 মিনিট জল খেয়ে আসছি। সো এই তিনটে কমপ্লিট হয়ে গেল, নাও উইল বি ডাইরেক্টলি গোইং ইনটু এক্সট্রাসিস্টাল এন্ড কম্পেনসেটরি গ্যাপ। ঠিক আছে, বাকিগুলো আমরা কমপ্লিট করব। দিস থিংস ইউ ডোন্ট নিড টু মার্ক আপ প্রপারলি, সাম থিংস ইউ ক্যান অলরেডি নো about thinking about the experiment. What do we need? কি কি আমাদের লাগবে? A frog, some scalpel, frog board, myograph chart, তারপর হচ্ছে পিনস, তারপর হচ্ছে থ্রেডস। এগুলো তোমাদের ভাবতে হবে না, এগুলো তোমরা এমনি বানিয়েই কিছু জিনিস লিখতে পারবে। ওকে, so not try to mug it up. 7 to 8 items you can just write by thinking about the experiment. What do we need? Okay, scalpel কেন? ব্যাংকটাকে কাটার জন্য। So a few things you don't need to actually mug up, you need to mug up a little extra things, like or you have to remember ki whenever we doing drugs and iron test, you have to provide iron solution like calcium chloride, sodium chloride, whatever iron we will be checking for, we will be providing the solution. So these things you will need to put down extra. Okay, but on the basis of it, it's not possible to forget all the things, because if there is no frog, if there is no board, okay, if there is no myograph, how will you conduct the basic experiment? So these things you don't need to completely mug it up, you need to just understand যে আমার কি কি জিনিস লাগে, সেটা তুমি এমনি বানিয়ে অনেক কিছু এমনি লিখতে পারবে। ঠিক আছে, এই ছবিটা ভাববে কিভাবে কাজটা হয়, so you can write a few things automatically. এই তাহলে বলো, অ্যাম্ফিবিয়ান হার্টে কটা চেম্বার থাকে? ঠিক আছে, ওখানে আমাদের স্টিমুলি কে ক্রিয়েট করে? Sinus venosus. Sinus venosus. It is a structure, okay, bulb-like structure in front of the atria and ventricles. Not ventricles, ventricle. একটাই থাকে of the atria and the ventricle. ওদের সামনে এরকম ভাবে থাকে, ঠিক আছে? ছবিটা বাট এখানে আমার ইন্টাররেক্টাল সেপ্টাম আছে, দুটো পার্ট আছে, আর এখানে কিছু নেই, ঠিক আছে? এরকম জায়গায় থাকে, এখানে এরকম একটা বাল্ব মতো থাকে, ঠিক আছে? সো দিস এরিয়া দ্য সাইনাস ভেনোসাস ইজ অ্যাকচুয়ালি প্রেজেন্ট ইন আ ফ্রগ হার্ট, ওকে? দিস এরিয়া আ বাল্ব লাইক স্ট্রাকচার, দিস ইজ দ্য সাইনাস ভেনোসাস, ঠিক আছে? বইতে দেখবে এরকমই আঁকা আছে। সো contractility was proved, conductivity was proved, rhythmicity was proved, automaticity was proved because of the continuous nature of this graph. So we will be seeing the other things, এগুলো এক এক করে কি বলছে, okay? So what are this, how do we know, and also we will be knowing one extra thing, that is effects of ions or drugs and drugs. Effects of ions or drugs, ঠিক আছে? So few drugs I'll be talking about today, and next day one or two drugs I'll be talking about again, ঠিক আছে? Main things will be completing today only. So yeah, instrument হয়ে গেছে, এগুলো হয়ে গেছে, ঠিক আছে? নেক্সট কাম ফরওয়ার্ড, এই যে এটা extra systole and compensatory gap or compensatory pause. So what is extra systole? Why were you talking about extra systole? So now if you see this graph, so normal amphibian heart rate, normal amphibian heart is like heart so this is actually your systole, okay? We are saying that this is contraction, atrial contraction or ventricular contraction, but this contraction means what? Contraction মানে systole. So there is extra systole, means a episode of an extra contraction in between them somewhere, okay? So this is your extra systole. So how this extra systole comes into play, okay? We will be discussing that. কি করছি আমরা? We will be providing stimuluses in various stages of this graph, okay? So we will be providing stimulus once there is completion of this systole, and we will be providing stimulus once if there is at the completion of atrial systole, and we will be providing a stimulus in completion of ventricular systole, and we will be providing a stimulus in between them, একটা এরকম জায়গায়। So we will be providing 3 stimuluses, okay? So how do we provide the stimuluses? মনে করো এখানে একটা জিনিস এক্সট্রা লিখেছিলাম, যেটা এখন বললাম, কি লিখেছিলাম? ইলেকট্রিক্যাল বোর্ড, okay, and electrodes. So this electrical board and electrodes, these are actually connected with this frog heart. এখানে যে ছবিটা ছিল, ওই frog heart এর দুপাশে দুটো ইলেকট্রোড দেওয়া হয় on both sides of the heart, okay? There the 2 electrodes are put, and after the 2 electrodes are put, electricity circuit is formed, and through that electricity is given or run, so that in 3 areas, okay, when the atrial systole is completed, first point, second point when the ventricular systole is completed, and third point in between the ventricular systole, okay? So this period is called your refractory period. Refractory period is the period between, okay? So this period has 2 parts. One is absolute refractory period, okay, absolute refractory period, and secondly relative refractory period. So this part, this between part, this in between area is divided into 2 parts. Absolute refractory, this is called refractory period, the point of transition between the, okay, systole and the diastole. This is your refractory period. So or point of the not point or the area of or the time between the atrial contraction and ventricular contraction, okay, to the from the next wave. তো এই যে নেক্সট ওয়েভটা শুরু হচ্ছে তার আগে তোমার এই কন্ট্রাকশনের যে মাঝের স্পেসটা, এটা কি আমরা বলছি রিফ্র্যাক্টরি পিরিয়ড, or a period between a muscle contraction and a muscle relaxation, to put it simply, ওকে, এখান দিয়ে আমার রিল্যাক্সেশন শুরু হচ্ছে, সো ওর মাঝখানের পিরিয়ডটাকে আমরা বলছি রিফ্র্যাক্টরি পিরিয়ড। So this has two part, absolute refractory period. This means when you put any kind of stimuli, okay, into this part, in case of absolute refractory period, your heart is completely contracted. So completely contracted. So this is completely contracted, okay. This is in systole proper. So when the heart is in systole proper, it's already completely contracted. If you put any kind of outside stimulus, then okay, it will not create any new graphs or any new, okay, any new fenestrations, or you can say anything, any new fenestrations, any new gap, or any new graph, whatever term you are familiar with use, but নতুন কিছু হবে না। If I even put in this absolute refractory period, okay, any kind of stimulus, so that's why it's called absolute refractory period. The refraction is absolute. There can be no outside stimulus which can affect this graph. But in case of relative refractory period, the heart is going from systole to diastole, okay. So heart is actually relaxing. So this is actually why this is called relative refractory period. The heart starting to relax. So the heart is actually somewhat relaxing. So in this case, if you provide stimulus, the heart can contract back again, okay. So whenever we put any kind of, so remember in this case, in this area we will not notice any kind of new graph, যেমন আমার এখানে হচ্ছিল তেমনি হবে। In case of this atrial area, we will also not notice any kind of change in graph, যেমন এখানে যাচ্ছিল it will go like this. But so these two periods or these two episodes are periods of absolute refraction. But this case, this transitional space, when the heart is going from systole or complete contraction to the diastole, or the diastole is starting, okay, or the relaxation of the chambers is starting, so it became a little bit relaxed, okay, it was contracted, then it became a little bit relaxed, আস্তে আস্তে আবার diastole হতে শুরু করছে। So in this case, if we put another outside stimuli, okay, the heart can contract again. So in this case, এইখানে যদি আমি তার মানে এরকম জায়গায় আমাকে স্টিমুলিটা দিতে হবে। So in this case, if I provide stimuli every time the heart comes into this area, তাহলে আমার কি রকম দেখাবে গ্রাফটা? প্রথমে এখানে atrial systole, ventricular systole, then again I am providing stimuli. Ventricular systole হয়ে গেছে, this is the point ventricular systole was finished, then going towards diastole, okay, এরকম সময় this is my relative refractory period. So আমি এখানেই হচ্ছে গিয়ে স্টিমুলিটা আবার দিচ্ছি বাইরে থেকে, via that electrical circuit, কি হবে, সেকেন্ড সিস্টোল, আরেকটা সিস্টোল হবে, the heart now it was dilating, it will contract again, আরেকবার কন্ট্রাক্ট করলে কি হবে, আবার আমার উপরে গ্রাফ ফর্ম হবে, because all these graphs are because of contraction, so again there will be contraction. Now after that second contraction, the heart is now contracted fully, ও আর কন্ট্রাক্ট হতে পারবে না। তো after this graph comes completely directly downwards, okay, মাঝখানে আর কোনোভাবে উঠতে পারে না, because already heart was relaxing a little bit, আমি আবার করে বাইরে থেকে স্টিমুলি দিয়েছি, sorry, আবার করে স্টিমুলি দিয়েছি, I provide the stimuli again, it become contracted, and this contraction is absolute contraction. So the heart goes back into this absolute refractory period, and thus no further deviations from this graph is occurred or noticed. So it will be like this. Then again আবার এরকম হচ্ছে, আবার যাচ্ছে, আবার আমি এখানে কন্ট্রাকশন দিচ্ছি, again it comes like this. Now আমি দুবার কন্ট্রাকশন দিয়েছি, তার আগে আমি কন্ট্রাকশন দিইনি, so it was looking before like this. Now I am stopping giving the contraction, and let the heart beat like this, like it was supposed to, then again it will come back to normal. Okay, so normally this graph is atrial systole, ventricular systole. Okay, then this is diastole, diastole, diastole. Heart is completely relaxed. Then again the heart starts to pump, not pump, get into systole or get into contraction. That means the heart is pumping, heart is contracting, heart is pumping. Okay, so again this atrial, this ventricular, but now this another ventricular systole, because of in the middle we are putting a stimuli. This is stimuli. Again we are putting another stimuli here. Abar আমার হয়ে গেল, then comes into 0, then again action potential forms, again atrial systole, ventricular systole, ventricular diastole starts. I provide stimuli, আবার একটা stimuli আমি দিয়েছি, the ventricle contracts again because it was getting dilated. I am providing a stimuli at this point, it again contracts. Now it cannot contract furthermore, so the graph will come down. Then again in this area I am not providing any outside stimuli again. Readily the heart, atrial systole, ventricular systole, the heart comes to normal, and this area is for sinus rhythm. বারবার বলেছি এটা জিজ্ঞেস করো, sinus rhythm will be present in all the graphs. So this extra systole, this phenomena is called extra systole, and after this extra systole there is a gap which is called as compensatory gap. Now once I stop this, okay, this next graph will look like this, but it will have a bigger magnitude. What do you mean bigger magnitude? Like this. Now see, এটার magnitude আর এটার magnitude same না, এটার magnitude হচ্ছে একটু different, and also there will be a gap here. এই যে দেখো এখানে একটা গ্যাপ থাকবে, this is actually not gap, this is a gap here. Yes? So this is your compensatory gap. Now তোমরা জিজ্ঞেস করবে এক্সট্রা সিস্টল কেন হয়, এই এক্সট্রা সিস্টল why does it happen, তোমরা এতক্ষণে বুঝতে পেরে গেছো. Now you will have your question about now why this gap, why this compensatory gap or compensatory pause, because আমার হার্ট ও ডায়াস্টল হচ্ছিল, ঠিক আছে, I again provided outside stimuli, so it gets contracted again, now again it dilates. So the dilation happens during a longer duration. So this dilation এখান থেকে শুরু হয়েছিল, এখানে contraction complete হয়ে গেছে. Normally in this area the contraction completes and the dilation starts from here. So the dilation, normal dilation period is this, ঠিক আছে, but in this case the normal dilation period is this area. So when you are putting another outside stimuli, when extra systole is happening, okay, so the time period for available for the ventricular diastole is very high. দেখো অনেক বেশি সময় জুড়ে ডায়াস্টল হচ্ছে, this time period was very less. So the more time, okay, a heart or a ventricle remains in diastole, the more blood it accumulates. যতক্ষণ আমার ডায়াস্টলে থাকবে তত বেশি ব্লাড অ্যাকুমুলেট হবে. Now that's why the next contraction needs to be more, so that ও বেশি পরিমাণে যে ব্লাডটা অ্যাকুমুলেট হয়েছিল সেটাকে আমি পুরোপুরি বার করে দিতে পারি, বিকজ হার্ট ক্যান নট স্টোর এক্সট্রা ব্লাড. ওকে, এক্সট্রা ব্লাড ও পুট করবে না, ওর কাজ হচ্ছে ফর কন্ডাক্ট দ্য ব্লাড, এক জায়গা থেকে আরেক জায়গায় পাঠানো. হার্টের কাজ is to move the blood from one organ to another organ. It's a pathway. Okay, it cannot store extra unnecessary blood in between. So when there is less period of ventricular dilation, there is normal amount of blood accumulating in the ventricles. But whenever this refractory period is high and the ventricular diastole is high, so the ventricle is dilating for longer period of time, so it it accumulates more amount of blood than necessary. So in this case there is a plateau, okay, and then after that there is maximal force of contraction, so that all that extra blood goes outside or can go outside, so that the force needs to be higher, but the property will not change. This is atrial contraction, this is ventricular contraction, but as you can see this ventricular contraction force is very high, কারণ এখানে ventricular diastole অনেক বেশি সময় ধরে হয়েছিল, অনেক বেশি ব্লাড জমেছিল, ventricular contraction অনেক বেশি হতে হবে to remove all the extra bloods. Okay, so that's why this compensatory gap and then this peak forms. এই পিকটার একটা নাম আছে, এইটার নামটা হচ্ছে post extrasystolic potential. Okay, post extrasystolic, extrasystole is here, so post মানে এর পরে আসছে, post extrasystolic potential. লেখো কি বলছে, post extrasystolic potential. Okay, so it is very much higher than the normal potential due to this increased relaxation period of the ventricles, so that the ventricles have more blood. So this phenomena is completed. We can see it in the graph. Okay, we will be finding these graphs and we can explain it via graph. Okay, so this is a typical phenomena of a frog's heart. যদি আমরা stimulate দিই in this relative refractory period, not in case of absolute refraction. So that's why this absolute and relative refraction is important. Now what is the clinical importance or clinical significance of this absolute and relative refraction? Now in case of skeletal muscles, you should remember, in case of skeletal muscles, okay, this absolute refractory period, okay, this is actually very less, 33%, and okay, this relative refractory period is 66, 2/3. But in case of cardiac muscles, in case of heart muscles, this absolute refractory period is almost 80%. In case of frogs, obviously, in case of frogs 80%, and this relative refractory period is only 20%. Okay, so the relative refraction is only 20% and absolute refraction is almost 80% in case of cardiac muscles, and that's why the heart muscles are not titanized. Okay, because this absolute refractory period is very much high. Okay, so this absolute refractory period is very much high, and that's why the heart muscles don't get tired, they don't get titanized, because যদি এরা বেশিক্ষণ রিলেটিভেই থাকতো, if the heart was more in this relative refractory period like cardiac muscles, okay, it would have been fatigued. So because the more time it remains in the relative refractory period, the more the body is getting random stimuluses. You are walking fast, you are late in the class, you are walking fast for 10 seconds, your heart is stimulating. Okay, you are smoking, heart is stimulating. You are talking or shouting, okay, your heart is getting stimulated. So heart gets stimulated continuously, but if the cardiac muscles remain in this relative refraction like this skeletal muscles, every time the heart will be getting these extra systoles. Okay, human heart also have extra systolic episodes when you are smoking too much, you have smoked 5 or 6 cigarettes continuously for any reason, stress, anxiety, you are having very much anxious episodes, you are having shouting episodes, you are in a hospital working setup, you are shouting, you are angry, you are having any kind of episodes where you are need to run, you are in hurry of your class. Okay, so in any case the body is getting, or the cardiac muscles are getting stimulated, and they provide this extra systole. This is completely physiological, this is a common phenomena found in humans also. But the thing is, since there is absolute refraction is 80%, So very less time, only 20% of the time, okay, the heart remains in this relative reflection. So only in this 20% of time, okay, the heart is having extra systole, so that the heart doesn't have any problem. And now think about it, if the heart was 80% time in relative reflection, continuously there would have been numerous amount of systoles, continue systole hote thakbe, continue heart contract hote thakbe, and it would have been very much problematic. Okay, and heart will be fatigued. যতক্ষণ বেশি আমার রিলেটিভ রিফ্লেকশনে থাকবে ততক্ষণ আমার হার্টকে স্টিমুলেট করা ইজি হবে, স্টিমুলেট করা। ওকে, সো দ্য হার্ট নিডস টু বি ইন অ্যাবসলিউট রিফ্লেকশন পিরিয়ড, and that's why 80% of the time it remains in absolute reflection, so that it is not getting stimulated by all these various aspects all the time. So extrasystole and compensatory gap, also this question can come as I explain why. The skeletal muscles really or easily get fatigued. Why? Because 66% time ওরা হচ্ছে গিয়ে আমার relative reflection এ থাকে, and when muscles are in relative reflection, it is very easy to put outside stimuli, যেটা আমরা এখানে অলরেডি দেখেছি। Okay, and get an extra systole or extra contractility period. But since heart is in 80% time is in absolute reflection, it's impossible to make this heart muscle or cardiac muscle contract regularly, and if it doesn't contract that much, it will not go into tetany. So tetany একটা explain হয় এখান থেকে আসতে পারে। Okay, this is not related to huge case of clinical aspect, but this tetany, all these things can come as an explain why. It's in your syllabus. Very important question. Very important question is a difference between cardiac muscle and skeletal muscle, and also explaining it to understand the tetany. Okay, very important question. Next is only three things left: all or none law, staircase effect, and summation of subminimal stimulus. So first will be, and also conductivity আমরা দেখে নিয়েছি, ওখানে আমরা ইলেকট্রিক্যাল ইম্পালস দিয়েছিলাম, ইলেকট্রিক বোর্ড দিয়ে এই যে স্টিমুলাসটা দিচ্ছি, যদি কন্ডাকশন নাই হতো then extra systole হতো না, so conduction was okay. So finally we have completed the conductivity check also, right? So yes, so all of these things are done. Now a few things are left: all or none law, staircase effect, summation of subminimal stimuli. What is all or none law? All or none law is, now we will be getting, abar amra electrical circuit will be connecting the electrical circuit and everything. Okay, now we are providing stimuli. We are providing stimuli to create the heart rate. Now in this case, until this time, we are taking and we are checking the heart in beating state. Okay, beating state. The heart was beating continuously. From onwards, this will be quiescence bananta dekhe niyo. Quiescence means calm. Okay, the heart which is not beating, quiescent heart. Okay, so quiescent state or quiescent ও বলতে পারে, স্পেলিংটা চেক করে নেবে। quiescent means calm. Okay, it's not beating. So all or none law. A heart is not beating, will be providing stimuluses continuously. Okay, from in various points. From what? From that electrical circuit we put. So কি পাবো আমরা? What will we get? First, the heart is dead. There is no beating. The heart is calm. Heart is quintessence or quiescence. এরকম আসবে। Then we are putting the stimuli. এখানে একটা stimuli আমরা দিচ্ছি। We are putting one stimuli. What will happen to the heart? The heart will beat. Heart will beat like this. Okay. Now again we will provide a stimuli, but now this is sub-threshold. Sub-threshold means this was the threshold, but this test energy is very less. This is threshold energy. This axial potential is very less, but there will be no beating, no starting of heartbeats or no contractility. Then again we will be providing more force or threshold force like we are getting there. Again it will create like this. Now we will be increasing the threshold, okay, more and more. Now we are increasing. এবারে দেখো এখানে আমরা দুটো দিয়েছিলাম, এখানে আমরা তিনটে দিই, আমরা threshold increase করি, but you will notice this length or force of contraction is equal in all the cases. So this is your all or none law. All or none means either it will get contracted or it will get not contracted. Just like the tube light. Assuming the voltage is everywhere same, okay, if we on the light, if we keep the light on, it will get on, and if we don't touch the switchboard, it will not get off. So any electrical impulse, if that's enough to provide the electricity or provide the desired result, okay, it will contract. So first আমরা আমাদের এখানে threshold দিয়েছিলাম, contract হয়েছে. Then we are putting sub threshold stimulus, threshold এর থেকে একটু নিচে. So it's not enough to make the cardiac muscle contract, okay, so the cardiac muscle is not contracting. Then again we are providing the threshold, it is contracting. Then we are putting hyper threshold, okay, this is more than threshold, but the length is or force of contraction is same. So that means either it will contract or it will not contract, okay. So either it was contracting or it was not contracting, but never the level of contraction is different from one another. Whenever we increase it, there is no difference. It either happens or it doesn't happen. That's your all or none law. বুঝা গেল? Human heart ও তাই, it shows the same behavior. Either the stimulus will come and contraction will happen or it will not happen. There is no যে অল্প হচ্ছে বেশি হচ্ছে, not like that. But this is all or none law. Okay, very easy to understand. এইগুলো তোমরা আগে কখনো পড়োনি বলে এতক্ষণ সময় লাগছে, but all of these things are not that much hard actually. ঠিক আছে, যে কেউ বলে দিতে পারবে all or none law. Whenever কি বলবে, whenever when putting any subthreshold stimulus, subthreshold, the heart will be not stimulated, but once we provide the threshold stimulus, even if we increase the threshold continuously, the force of contraction will remain same, and that is our all or none law in case of a question sort of a frog. এইভাবে পুরোটা গুছিয়ে লিখতে হবে, বুঝতে পেরেছো? এমন কিছু কঠিন না, জিনিসটা বুঝে গেলে এমনি বানিয়ে এইভাবে লিখে দেবে। এটা হয়ে গেল। নেক্সট তাহলে আমার কি রইলো, স্টেয়ারকেস এফেক্ট। নাও স্টেয়ারকেস এফেক্ট মানে কি? increasing force of stimuli or force of contraction. Now আমরা কি করছি, আস্তে আস্তে ফোর্সটাকে বাড়াচ্ছি, ঠিক আছে? সো কিভাবে বাড়াচ্ছি? ফার্স্ট we are putting a stimulus here, then after that we are increasing the force of contraction itself. Again there is a stimulus, so in every case the force of contraction is getting increased. In this case the force is more, in this case the force is again more. We are increasing the force of contraction continuously, but after some time it will come to a plateau. দেখো এই যে এখানে look, this is a staircase, okay. Slowly but surely, when we will increase the force of contraction, gradually this graph will increase. First, this is ventricular contraction, this is second ventricular contraction, this is second ventricular contraction, third ventricular contraction. So it's constantly increasing until a point when it will reach the plateau, okay. So a plateau, and this force of contraction is now actually uniform. It is not, or it cannot be increased further. Okay, after some time, it first forms a staircase, then it forms a plateau. Like সিঁড়ি দিয়ে ওঠার পর একটা নরমাল জায়গা আছে, একটা ফ্লোরে তুমি রিচ করে গেছো. So this is like that only. Why this effect? Because every time there is a contraction of cardiac muscle due to a contraction of cardiac muscle কোন আয়নের জন্য হয় বলো? Calcium. Okay, whenever these calcium ions come inside the cell, it causes the contraction. Now you have to remember there was T sarcoplasmic reticulum, এসবগুলো তোমাদের সব বলা হয়েছিল. Sarcoplasmic reticulum এরকম ভাবে ছিল T shaped. Okay, T shaped sarcoplasmic reticulum that actually releases your calcium into cardiac cells. This sarcoplasmic reticulum. So now in case of every contraction there was release of calcium ions from this sarcoplasmic reticulum. Now in every case, since we are increasing the force of contraction, all the calcium ions cannot go back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum or cannot go outside in the circulation also. It remains in these cardiac muscles, in and around these cardiac muscles, these calciums. Okay, so they are not completely gone. Okay, whenever we are releasing the stimuli, it comes down, but it's not completely gone. There is still some calcium ions left. So first we are providing the stimuli, calcium ions are coming, contraction is happening. Then we are removing the stimuli, but no, suppose there are all these calcium ions previously they have come into this area, but whenever we are removing the stimuli, it's not possible for all the calcium ions to go back. Okay, so some remain. ধরো এতগুলো চলে গেছে বাট অল্প কিছু বাকি আছে, এখানে অল্প কিছু দেখো বাকি আছে. Again we are getting another more force of contraction, again calcium ions are coming. So there was already a little bit of calcium ion here which wasn't gone anywhere. So slowly but surely this calcium ion is increasing. Okay, with every force of contraction the calcium ion is increasing. Now in this case the calcium ions are continuously increasing, and once they reach this calcium ion reach its threshold, or this calcium ion reach its maturation bolte paro. Okay, or হচ্ছে গিয়ে hypersaturation বলতে পারো, anything, it gets saturated. So there is now a constant amount of calcium level irrespective of if you put any stimulus or remove the stimulus. That's why even if you put the stimulus here, there the calcium level actually gets saturated. So the force of contraction will be only because of that amount of calcium only. Since this is saturated, okay, it cannot increase any further, and not increasing this calcium any further will not increase the force of contraction. It will keep the force of contraction same for the further contractions as well. So that is your staircase effect. বলো কে কিছু বলছিলে? Anyhow, this is your staircase effect due to retention of calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum in the cardiac cell. This is your staircase effect. Okay, first there is a staircase, then there is a plateau when this calcium level reaches your saturation level, right? This is staircase effect হয়ে গেল. Next, summation of subminimal stimuli. So now we will provide a few 5 to 6 subminimal stimuli into the frog heart, and we will see what happens. This is also very easy. কিছু না, দেখো কি বলছে. So what were you doing? First we are putting subthreshold stimuli. ঠিক আছে, subthreshold stimuli. So what did we discuss? Whenever we are putting subthreshold stimuli, will there be any contraction? This subthreshold, no, there will be no contraction. Then we are putting again a subthreshold stimuli. Will there be any contraction? No. But like this, if you put 5 or 6 subthreshold stimuli, then finally when there is enough accumulation of stimuli to get a contraction, okay, it will actually multiply. it will actually multiply. And if you sum, if you take the total amount of contraction into account, you will see that it's because of, or it's the end result of all the stimuli. So this is suppose stimuli 1, this is stimuli 2, this is stimuli 3. Okay, so all of these are sub-threshold stimuli. That means a stimuli below your threshold level, but the contraction, this contraction C or the force of contraction FC, so this FC will be equal to S1 plus S2 plus S3. So what you can notice, that summation of subminimal stimuli. So there is subminimal stimuli. Okay, so all this time they are not getting stimulated or contracted, but when they do, the force of contraction will be equal to all the previous applied subminimal stimuli. So that is the point, summation. So there is a summation of all these forces, and finally this force of contraction is equal to S1 plus S2 plus S3, every S being one sub-threshold or subminimal stimuli. Okay, বোঝা গেল? So এই হচ্ছে ব্যাপার। ওকে, or আরেকটাও আমরা বলতে পারি সাবমিনিমাল, দিস ইজ সাব-থ্রেশোল্ড। সাবমিনিমাল কি, ধরো আমরা খুব ছোট ছোট স্টিমুলাই দিচ্ছিলাম, যে একটুখানি হয়েছে, মানে এত ছোট স্টিমুলাই যে একটুই কন্ট্রাক্ট হয়েছে। সো দিস ইজ S1, then very small again S2, then very small again S3. Now finally after all these stimuli it gets finally fully, okay, fully contracted. So in that case also this FC will be equal to S1 plus S2 plus S3. Now this is not sub-threshold, it is sub-minimal. Okay, so whatever sub-threshold stimuli, subminimal stimuli, whatever stimuli you give, all of this will be accumulated when ultimately it gets contracted. This accumulation is actually a synonym of summation. So summation of subminimal stimuli happens or is noticed in case of amphibian height or frog height. ঠিক আছে, so this is your basically application of subminimal stimuli. So this summation of subminimal stimuli to proof হচ্ছে। So stair cut effect আমরা পড়ে নিয়েছি, summation of subminimal stimuli ও আমরা পড়ে নিয়েছি। ঠিক আছে, so now one thing, আরেকটা ছিল বাকি, ওটা আমরা নেক্সট দিন তাহলে পড়বো, effect of drugs। ঠিক আছে, অ্যাসিটাইলকোলিন, অ্যাড্রিনালিন, সোডিয়াম, পটাশিয়াম এন্ড ক্যালসিয়াম।